Now, for Lesson 3 of Module 1, I want to talk about your journey of change and transformation. Nothing changes in our life until we change. And when we change, our life should change. So let's go into the study of this. You may have the personal reality of lack that you're living, and you want to create the personal reality of abundance. Okay, so how do we get there? So your personality creates your personal reality. And your personality is made of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality here of lack has created the present personal reality of lack. If the person wants to create an abundant lifestyle or a reality of abundance, that means they're going to have to change their personality. So if your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, then as long as you're living as the same personality, your personal reality should stay the same. So the personality of lack has created the personal reality of lack. Now, the personality who thinks the same thoughts of lack, acts the same way in lack, and feels the feelings of lack is in the same state of being, and that personality has the same personal reality. So what does that look like then? If you keep thinking the same thoughts every single day, you keep making the same choices, you keep demonstrating the same actions and doing the same things, you keep creating the same experiences, and you keep feeling the same feelings and emotions, then you're the same personality and your life should stay the same. That's because you're staying the same. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your gene expression stays the same because you're staying the same. Keep thinking the same thoughts, keep making the same choices, keep doing the same things, keep creating the same experiences, keep feeling the same emotions. Nerve cells that fire together wire together, and now we're programmed to behave in a very particular future based on what we've done in the past. Okay, so now here's the same personality of lack, here's the same personal reality of lack. If you keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, doing the same things, creating the same experiences, and feeling the same emotions, you're on a very predictable future timeline of lack. Okay, so then, if this is the personal reality of lack and that's the personal reality of abundance, how do we get there? How do we get from here to there? The only way we're going to get there is we're going to have to change. We're going to literally have to become someone else. That means the personality of lack has to become the personality of abundance. We literally have to become someone else. So now, if the new personality of abundance can think thoughts that are related to abundance, act and do things that create abundance, and feel the feelings of abundance, if you keep thinking in new ways, acting in new ways, and feeling in new ways, that new personality, that new state of being, can begin to create a new personal reality of abundance. So that means you got to learn new information. If you learn new information, and every time you learn something new, you make new connections in your brain, and you're able to remember that information, you'll begin to think differently. If you think differently and then make new choices and demonstrate new behaviors and actions to create new experiences and feel new feelings and emotions, then your new personality should take you into a new future. So here's the personal reality of lack. Here's the vision of abundance in your future. Here's your future timeline of lack. How are we going to get from here to there? Well, we have to have a vision and an emotion, a thought and a feeling, an intention of that future combined with an energy. So I want you to think about your intention as a direction for you to arrive. That's the direction you're headed. But that direction needs something to get us there, and it takes energy to keep doing. Now, the most important thing about this slide is for you to remember that nobody is going to create that energy for you, that you have to bring that energy up, and that energy that you create for yourself should inspire you to arrive at that vision of the future. So here's your personal reality of lack. There's your personal reality of abundance. It's going to take energy, and that energy then to keep doing is the energy of excitement. It's the energy of inspiration. It's the energy of optimism. It's the energy of enthusiasm. It's the energy of motivation. That is what you have to create on your own. So your vision of your abundant personal reality has to be associated with some elevated emotional state. That's what keeps us inspired to keep doing. Now that you've learned that in order for you to change your personal reality, that you have to change your personality, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, then the personality that's been living in a state of lack must change to become the personality that's living in a state of abundance. So let's go over that model for you to begin to understand what it means to truly change. There's the old personality and there's a new personality. The biological model for change is breaking the habit of being yourself and then reinventing a new self. We could say that you'd have to unlearn certain thoughts, behaviors, and emotions and relearn new thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. In other words, you'd have to stop thinking the same way and start thinking another way. You'd have to stop doing the same things and start doing new things. You'd have to stop feeling the same way and start feeling different ways. That means then you'd have to overcome the old self and become a new self. So let's go a step further. That means then you would have to remind yourself of who you no longer want to be. So it's important for you then to become conscious of your unconscious thoughts and beliefs that keep you programmed to believing and thinking in the same way. You'd have to become conscious of your unconscious habits and behaviors, so conscious that you wouldn't go unconscious to those behaviors and actions in your waking day. And you'd have to look at the emotions that you live by and those feelings and decide if these emotions and feelings belong in your future. So the first step then for you to truly change then is for you to come up against the personality of lack and scarcity. So it's important for you then to write down a thought or a belief that keeps you from that vision or goal. And think of a belief as a thought you keep thinking over and over again until it becomes hardwired in your brain. Now, most of the time, these thoughts and beliefs slip by our awareness unnoticed or unchecked by us because, for the most part, 95% of who we are by the time we're in the middle of our life is a set of hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions. So if you can write down 2 thoughts or 2 beliefs that you don't want to believe or think any longer, the first step is to remember not to think this way. List 2 actions or behaviors or things that you do that keep you in the same personality of lack. A habit, then, is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. It's important for us to catch ourselves going unconscious and returning back to the same habit. List 2 of those that you want to change or things that you do that you want to change. And finally, what are the feelings or emotions that you live by every single day that keeps you behaving and believing in your past? It's important for us to become conscious of these unconscious feelings so that we can change them. So your homework then is to deconstruct the personality of lack and scarcity in order for you to change. Now, it's also important for us to remind ourselves of who we do want to be. So you have to remind yourself of who you want to be. Think about those qualities and characteristics of an abundant personality. They would think a certain way, and if a thought repeated over and over again becomes a belief, in other words, a belief is a thought you keep thinking over and over again, how do you want to remember to think? At least think about a new way of thinking. Then how would you want to act? What would you do? What new habits would you want to create? It's important to become conscious of who you want to become. Lastly, become aware of the feelings and emotions that could be the emotions that you learned from the personality of abundance. They're generous, they're grateful, they're humble, they're in love with life. And your job then is to construct now the personality of abundance. Write down 2 thoughts or 2 beliefs that you want to fire and wire in your brain. This is part of the meditation process that we'll be doing in this module. You have to list now 2 actions, 2 behaviors, 2 things that you would start doing differently in order to become that abundant personality. And then you would have to create the feelings and emotions of that abundant person ahead of actually becoming abundant. Keep thinking differently, keep acting differently, keep feeling differently. You begin to create a new personality, and that new personality begins to create the new personal reality. All of this is important for you when we go into our final lesson, number 4, about motivation, mission, and goals. In other words, you have to become somebody else.